Just remember, it won't really matter the length of yours. As long as you're really speaking to your avatar, they're getting the value that they wanted to come for. Either it's comedy or something that they learned, it's value, it's tangible, it's takeaways, whatever it is. I want to make sure that the whole episode has that.
Most hosts never achieve the results they hoped for. They're falling short on listenership and monetization, meaning their message isn't being heard and their show ends up costing them money. This podcast was created to help you grow your listenership and make money while you're at it. Get ready to take notes. Here's your host, Adam Adams.
Welcome back to the podcast on podcasting. It's Adam AAA Adams, and we're just talking about two things today. This is the length of your podcast and the frequency, the cadence that you should be publishing your podcast. Because a lot of people want to know, how often should I publish an episode? And they want to know, like, how long should the episodes be? And I want to start by letting you know that, look, the length of each episode is not the factor that's going to make you famous or rich. The duration, the length of your podcast episode is not the main factor. 14% of them are 10 minutes or less, and a lot of those are very successful. 15% of podcasts out there are 10 to 20 minutes, and a lot of them are very successful. 20 to 40 minutes, that's 31% of podcasts. 22% of podcasts are 40 to 60 minutes, and 17% of podcasts are over an hour. There's a few really good podcasts out there that are 2 or 3 hours that are famous. There's a lot of podcasts that get a lot of glory and they're like 5-10 minutes. And there's a lot of people that are going to pretend that this is a finite thing. Your podcast needs to be, and they'll say either 25 or they'll say 35 minutes because they'll like reference a commute for it. These are not statistics that are finite. These are not statistics that are blanket statements. Really what you want to be thinking about for the length of a podcast is who your listener is. Who are you helping? What do they want? What is the length that's going to really help them? For example, I love a lot of different podcasts out there, but Adam Adams, I kind of like the shorter podcasts. I kind of like the takeaways that I feel like I can do something because I listened to this episode. I can be better because I listened to this episode. It had a really good takeaway. It made sense. He or she wrapped it up for me. I get it. I prefer shorter. So if I could listen to a podcast, I would want a podcast that was under 20 minutes. That would be my preference. Adam would want under 20-minute podcasts. But Joe Rogan, for example, has 2 or 3 hour podcast length. 2.5 is very common for him and is pretty famous. So somebody trying to pretend like 35 minutes is the right time or under 10 minutes is the right time or 2.5 hours is the right time. Look, there's famous podcasts at every length. Think about your avatar. What do they want? Next thing to think about is how much value are you giving? Like, are you really going to be giving value? If you're going to be giving value the whole time, if it's going to be funny, if it's going to be entertaining, if it's going to be consumable, if it's going to be interesting, and it's not going to be boring, it can be as long as you're still adding value, as you're still helping somebody. It can be that length. But if you're going off on random tangents and people don't know what they're listening to, what they're going to get out of the episode, it's going to be challenging for you to have it very long or even having a podcast at all. So just remember, it has a lot to do with your avatar, and it has a lot to do with your goals, and it has a lot to do with how much value or how long you can keep somebody's attention. All right. There is no data that I can find that says a 5-minute or a 25-minute or a 45-minute or a 1.5 hour or 2.5 hour is going to make or break the podcast strength. There's no data on that I can find anywhere. So just remember, it won't really matter the length of yours. As long as you're really speaking to your avatar, they're getting the value that they wanted to come for. Either it's comedy or something that they learned, it's value, it's tangible, it's takeaways, whatever it is. I want to make sure that the whole episode has that and it's for the right person. And then the next question is just like, what is the cadence that I should have? What's the frequency that I should be posting these? Well, I will say 7% of podcasts are 0 to 2 days. That basically is a daily podcast. 38% of them are once a week or twice a week. 39% of podcasts out there are longer than a week. This is like 8 to 14 days. So basically every other week. And 15% of podcasts are between once and twice a month total, like every 15 to 29 days. And 1% of podcasts that are regular publishing podcasts, only 1% of them only publish after 30 days. So, but does this mean that you necessarily will get more value because you have a certain length? No, this doesn't necessarily say it. But there are something that will affect you, that will help you understand how frequently that you should be posting. And basically, the way that I can boil it down to the easiest is the more you publish, the higher percentage that you're going to be famous. The more you publish, a lot of people are afraid to publish like a lot of episodes because they think that if I publish 2 episodes, my listeners not going to be able to listen to all of them. If I'm doing 2 a week, my listener, they say, only has the ability to listen to 1 of those episodes per week. And so I would be diluting it. I would be like making it harder for them to listen because I give more content. And that's actually not the case. I was speaking at a conference once upon a time where the leader of the conference, he has a daily podcast, and the lady raised her hand to ask a question. Said basically, like, if you started all this over again, would you still do a daily podcast? His answer was no. I would do a twice daily podcast, because he understands that the more often that you publish, the more likely you're going to be famous, the more likely that you're going to get value, the more likely people are going to share your podcast, the more likely that you're going to have tangibles that people can take away. And that's one of the reasons why this podcast, as I'm recording today, we publish 4 times a week. We have 2 interview episodes and 2 solo episodes every single week on this podcast as I record it right now. It's in large part because I know that adding that more additional value to you, you're more likely to share some of our episodes, and podcasts can actually grow a lot faster. We'll also be triggering some algorithms within like Apple and iTunes and Stitcher that's going to show that we produce more content and we do it regularly. So with all of that said, my biggest goal is to pour into you and hope that even though 39%, well, actually, let's just say it's 55% of all podcasts are less than once a week. And 45% of all podcasts are weekly or better, weekly or more frequent. Even though there's more podcasts that do less than once a week, I'm hoping that you're picking up, like if you were this guy that I was speaking at his conference, if you were him and you were asked a question, if you did it all over again, would you still do a daily podcast? I want you to answer no. I would do a twice daily podcast. Now, I don't want you to be like overwhelmed or stressed about having to do a daily, but the point is do more than you currently think you should, because the more you do, the more value that you will give. And the more value that you give out, the more value that you will also get. If you help enough other people get what they want, you'll have everything in life that you want. And that's a quote from Zig Ziglar. And the point of this podcast episode today is the length of your podcast episode doesn't really matter. You'll get value anyway, as long as you're giving value, and the amount of the frequency or the cadence of how frequent or often or regular you should be publishing is at least once a week, and the more, the better. And you can take that to the bank. I'll see you on the next episode. 2 quick things before you go. Number 1, if you are looking to upgrade like your podcast equipment or just get your very first affordable microphone, then go to growyourshow.com/PDF. That link's in the show notes. Go ahead and scroll down. On that PDF is 100% equipment for your podcasting studio that I've personally vetted. My team has vetted this. We know that it works. We know that it's affordable, and we don't want you paying more for your podcasting equipment. So again, if you're looking to upgrade your equipment or get your very first inexpensive microphone that works great, that's where you go. And then number 2 is got a free course, A to Z, on everything you need to know about podcasting. And you don't have to go anywhere but the podcast in order to access it. You don't have to even give me an email address to access it. It is just the very first 6 episodes of this podcast. So what you'll do is you'll scroll down a bit, you'll click on the all episodes, and scroll down because we're hundreds of episodes in. And you'll see that episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 is a free course from A to Z on launching a top podcast. Take advantage of those 2 things. I'll see you on the next episode.